It took me getting in the kitchen and reintroducing food I had been truly afraid of because unfortunately, when you are 19 years old and you type into Google, how does a 19-year-old lose weight? The first thing it's leading you to is the Atkins diet or Weight Watch. So I was counting, I did probably almost anything you can think of. I restricted and I counted and I measured, and it was obsessive, it was depressing, it was awful. And so it took time.
Welcome back to PCOS Unfiltered, where we go beyond the diagnosis and start asking deeper questions about our health, our habits, and the messages our bodies are trying to send us. I'm your host, Lindsie, nurse turned health coach, mindful eating advocate, and author of Healing Beyond the Diagnosis. Today's episode is such an important conversation because we're talking about something that so many women struggle with, but rarely feel safe talking about openly: our relationship with food, our bodies, and the pressure to constantly follow the next best health trend. My guest today is Laura Heflin. Laura is a holistic nutrition and wellness consultant, author, and host of the Live Healthy with Laura podcast. Through her work, she helps people rebuild trust with their bodies, reconnect with nourishing foods, and step away from the rigid, fear-based approaches to health that so many women have been taught. Laura's journey into this work is deeply personal. After experiencing major health challenges from a young age, including surgery, hormonal imbalances, cystic acne, an eating disorder, depression, miscarriages, and eventually a diagnosis of adrenal PCOS, she found herself searching for answers beyond what traditional medicine alone was offering. Through years of learning, healing, and listening more closely to her own body, Laura discovered something powerful. The body often knows exactly what it needs, but we've been conditioned to stop listening. In this episode, we talk about Laura's journey through eating disorder recovery, hormonal healing, PCOS, miscarriages, and chronic symptoms that didn't make sense at first. We also dive into intuitive eating, the dangers of rigid diet culture, the role of stress and the nervous system in hormone health, and how learning to trust your body can transform the way you approach food, energy, and healing. This conversation is full of powerful reminders that your body is not the enemy. Healing is not linear, and sometimes the most important step in your health journey is learning how to listen again. As a reminder, the content shared on PCOS Unfiltered is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are not intended to serve as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise, or treatment plan. The information shared is based on personal experience and expert interviews and is not a substitute for professional medical guidance. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Laura Heflin. Welcome back, and welcome to Laura. Super excited. I think, align in a lot of ways with things, and I'm super excited for the listeners to hear your story. So let's kind of start there. Yeah, let's kind of start there. What is your story? Can you walk us through your journey? And I know you shared with me, you were going through a lot. You had PCOS yourself, some issues, all that stuff. So let's start there and share with the listeners.
Yeah. I think the farthest back I should go is really age 11, 12 when I had a traumatic, I say traumatic, but it was planned, but a traumatic back surgery that put me in a body cast for a year. Really put my body through a lot of stress. It was a 9-hour surgery. And from that point, my menstrual cycle started full blown. And I was then, before we knew it, covered in scars and cystic acne. And really not doing well, and gut issues and all kinds of things that I think, might have been underlying, but really like the trauma of the surgery, I think, threw my body into a disarray when it came to my hormones. And so then we went through a whole lot of things, and my parents helped me the best they could, but I was thrown on Accutane, and which now has a black box warning for certain things and side effects. And I experienced some side effects from that. And it was just hormonally, it was like a salmon swimming upstream from the age of 11, 12. And, and then I get my cycle, and it was, I'm just dealing with a lot of pain. But again, nobody was talking about anything like that to me. And I really didn't talk about it to anyone because I thought this was normal. Um, and I got to the place where I was just, I got married really young and we suffered a miscarriage. But again, people have miscarriages. So again, a lot of things I just accepted to be as normal. And I was not involved with the functional medicine space. Like I wasn't familiar like I am now. I do work as a holistic nutrition and wellness consultant in that space. And now I know so much and I know we can ask the question why. But at the time, my parents are amazing. My dad's an amazing Western medical doctor, but like they're not trained to ask why. And so I just experienced a lot of things. And then at the age of 19, I battled an eating disorder and I lost my menstrual cycle for a long time. And that hormonal imbalance, on top of my other hormonal imbalances, really threw my neurotransmitters, my mental health into disarray as well. And so I started dealing with a lot of debilitating, dark depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue. And so it was like, really, I got to a breaking point of hardly being able to get out of bed at 19, and being so miserable, not just physically anymore. And I think my turning point was I was now mentally, I felt like I didn't know who I was. Despite my hormonal imbalances leading up to age of 19, before my eating disorder, I was still happy. I was still able to experience life and see the colors. At the age of 19, though, became a different person because I was no longer able to experience joy because I was battling crippling depression, but I was not willing to talk to anybody about it. And this is the part I'm very vocal about. I was so ashamed, which we should never be ashamed of our struggles because I believe God wants us to speak them out to get help. We're not meant to live and stay this way. But I was ashamed and I didn't know I could talk about it. It was a really lonely journey. Loneliness is a huge part of my journey because I wouldn't say nobody would have heard my story, but I didn't allow myself to share it. So at the age of 20 years old, after a year of battling my disorder and miscarriage, I one day we are taking my grandma out to dinner. You know how we have those like life gets foggy, but there's those few aha moments where you're like, that moment changed me. So we're out to dinner with my grandma, who I miss so much. This is before kids. I now have a beautiful, beautiful rainbow baby, a girl and a boy. But and I will say I did suffer 4 more miscarriages after that. It ended up being I have a clotting issue, and low progesterone and a lot of things. But in between that time, I did get well. And so we went to dinner with my grandma and it was really special because I had not been eating for a year. I had not touched carbohydrate. I'll just tell you, there was so much food fear. And one day my husband's like, why don't you just order something you really want on the menu? Like he didn't know how bad my disorder was at the time. I had kind of played it off, but he could tell I was being very restrictive. And I remember ordering lasagna and taking like my first bite and being like, what have I been doing? Why I have not enjoyed food in an entire year. And it was like this moment where I was like, I wonder if I could actually get well and enjoy food in a different way and still love my body. I don't think this restrictive thing is loving my body. I think I've been hating on my body this whole time. And I guess I should go back and say when I got married, I started living like him and eating like him for a year and I put on some weight. That was really what triggered my eating disorders. Then I got quote quote healthy and I went way on the other end of the spectrum in an unhealthy way. And it was not good. So that leads me up to 20 years old. My husband says, I think you seem to be really enjoying life again. You're in the kitchen, you're playing with Whole Foods. Why don't you go help other people because you just walk through a lot that I had finally shared with him, more. And he was like, you walk through a lot. Why don't you go help people? Well, my dad being a family physician he was like, hey, if you want to go down the nutritionist route, I'd love to have you here helping my patients. And so the rest was history and Live Healthy with Laura was born 15 years ago. So August 2020, I don't know what that would be, but it's been 15 years. So that's where I am. And ever since then, I've been making my own whole food recipes, helping clients one-on-one. I now work at an amazing holistic wellness clinic. And I podcast as well and write books. So it's just been a beautiful unfolding ever since.
Yeah. So after you had that lasagna, like what, like, tell me about the journey even beyond that. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't super easy then,
Yeah. So I
with
had
that.
restricted for so long and I knew I wasn't healthy. I knew I wasn't well because I didn't have a menstrual cycle. And I knew my depression hit really hard when I stopped feeding myself. So I could see the timeline. I would go off of my day. I would ask myself, how little can you get by today? And with, it was really depressing, really sad way of living. And it was never about loving myself. It was about looking at myself with hatred, really, truly, and not loving myself the way God made me and looking at that number on the scale as a definition of who I was. And so it was definitely a journey. I will not downplay that. It took me getting in the kitchen and reintroducing food I had been truly afraid of because unfortunately, when you are 19 years old and you type into Google, how does a 19-year-old lose weight? The first thing it's leading you to is the Atkins diet or Weight Watch. So I was counting, I did probably almost anything you can think of. I restricted and I counted and I measured, and it was obsessive, it was depressing, it was awful. And so it took time for me to throw out the numbers completely and start breathing around food and then asking my body what makes you feel good. When I got my cycle back, I started seeing, okay, I really do need healthy whole foods, carbs, I need protein, I need to eat breakfast. I can't just live
Mhm.
off of caffeine. And it got me thinking, like, if I can heal, how many other women are out there suffering with all these issues as well and depression? And if my depression can get better and, my cycle can come back and my skin can clear up because I'm embracing whole foods that I believe God put on this planet to heal us, to feed us. And I wasn't afraid anymore. I mean, I got better results eating. And I was like, what is happening here? I spent a year depriving myself and I look better and feel better eating God made whole food. So it was like probably a year after that of healing my mental health as well, of healing my relationship with food. It wasn't, yeah, it wasn't just I can't talk lasagna. It was, but that was a very pivotal moment because I allowed myself to relax and breathe around food. And I just remember feeling like so happy and good for the first time that it was like not about the lasagna, but it was. It was like you gave yourself room to breathe and you probably ate something your body's been needing. You've been needing some carbs, you've been needing some healthy fats, you've been avoiding so many things that I think it was that moment for me, I'll just never forget.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and you even mentioned about, the calorie counting and whatever you want to say, macro counting and Atkins and
Mm,
all that stuff, of
mhm.
course, I've shared on previous episodes, how I feel about that. I just,
I'm so glad we're aligned, and I'm so glad you're coming on my podcast as well. Yeah,
yes. It might work for some people. It might, but like I think in general, it's just one more thing to add to somebody's
not
day. It's not
sustainable.
realistic. Yeah, it's
It's
not.
not sustainable, and you're also not a number. That's the thing is like our
Mhm.
bodies are ever changing. What I might have needed last week, my body based on where I am in my cycle or in my energy output this week could be a little different. Based on the weather, based on the amount of mental health, like our body will speak to us if we allow it to. And so I think when we tie ourselves to rigid numbers of points or macros of any sort, we're robotically going about life and expecting our body to just be this programmed machine that it's not, and so that's why my entire company is intuitive living, intuitive eating, because our bodies are speaking to us and trying to guide us every day, but we have shut them out and we've turned up the noise of the health space. And so we're turning our own body out, tuning our own body out. And it's this very toxic, vicious cycle that I see all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Now tell us, you were diagnosed with PCOS?
Yeah. So ironically, my sister had it. And so I guess I should backtrack. So I get well in the sense of I start healing, but then we started having miscarriage after miscarriage. And don't get me started on the fact that you have to lose 3 pregnancies to get help. Now that's changed down to 2, but I don't think that's right. I think people should be able to get their hormones tested without that. But I had a form of PCOS called adrenal PCOS. I say had because it's in remission, but I guess I could say I still have it. My sister, see, I didn't ever expect myself to have this because my one sister had the classic symptoms of PCOS, the grapes on your ovaries and the ultrasound, and the acne, I'm sorry, I had acne, but the hair, facial hair, all that. And I didn't have any of that. And so I had the acne, but that went away. But it was just one of those things where I was like, well, I don't have all these cysts. I've had cysts before, but I don't have the classic cysts, if that makes sense. So I just never thought I had it. Well, come to find out, I finally see an amazing functional doctor who does all the testing, and my DHEA was through the roof. So yes, my testosterone was where it should have been, but my DHEA was through the roof. Needless to say, Cliff Note version, one of the ways I healed myself in that way is lots of nervous system somatic work to heal my nervous system, to heal my adrenals, so my adrenals would not be overproducing that mother hormone. So, and I will just say, like in the midst of all of this, I was seeing other doctors that meant well, but would throw herbals at me that weren't helping because I ended up getting way worse. Right. And so it was one of those things that I think everyone means well, but we have to be thorough and look at blood work before you throw somebody on that. I was very estrogen dominant. And so then
Mhm.
what came to be is I also found out I had the MTHFR gene mutation, as well as MTRR, as well as COMT. And the more we know about COMT, you can't detox estrogen properly or stress hormones. Needless to say, I couldn't detox my stress, and therefore it presented in my adrenals with really high DHEA. So all of that led me down to the road of eventually having 5 centimeter cysts, and things would pop up, and then we traced it back. But it wasn't the classic PCOS that I was expecting, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
so it was confusing to have normal testosterone, but yeah. So I wasn't familiar that there were other forms of PCOS. And
Mhm.
so, yeah. And so once I healed my hormones and my DHEA went back to normal, and I did have to do blood thinners while pregnant and progesterone suppositories, I did have my rainbow babies, but it was a long journey for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing. That's why, I mean, I think there's so many more women out there that have
Mhm.
it that we don't even, realize
Yes.
because you don't need the cysts on your ovaries to be diagnosed anymore.
Right. Or you can be lean. Like I'm
Exactly.
pretty lean, and that's just me genetically. I mean, I take care of myself, but like in general, so but you don't have to battle your weight or have facial hair to have PCOS. And that was something I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about more about the intuitive eating, piece.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, I mean, for me, and probably a lot of other people, they might have heard of like mindful eating,
Hmm.
which they might be similar in the same way, um, but how would you define that? Let's just kind of start there.
Yeah, we are all bio individuals. And so like what my body is asking for can vary from day to day. And it can also vary from my sister, my best friend, my mom. And I think unfortunately our health space has become so noisy, and it's a $1 billion, trillion, however many dollars industry now. Because they're not making money off of your clarity, it's off your confusion. And nobody's going to make money off of telling you to trust yourself. They
Mhm.
want you to buy their product. And so I was again buying products that I thought I needed, or accounting apps, or whatever it was. And what it came down to really is pausing and asking my own body questions like, how do I feel? Okay, I feel really good today. I'm feeling energized. My skin's glowing. I'm not having any, constipation or stomach pains. What is happening? Let me ask myself some questions. What did I eat? What did I not eat today? What time did I go to bed? What did I do for my mental health today? And so I started piecing together what my body loved and what it didn't love, and really teaching my clients in this way. But we are all individuals. I do eat for my blood type most of the time. I'm blood type A. And so, I do really well on fish and lots of plants and all of that. But there's So I don't do well eating red meat 4 or 5 times a week, but I can have it a couple times a week. And it's about saying, well, how do I feel? And I think we need to take ownership and we of our health, but also we need to be empowered and know we are meant to feel well. We do not need to walk around feeling depleted, exhausted, sick, depressed, overweight. All of those are accepted in our society as normal, and there's a prescription that a doctor can would be happy to give you for that. But there's actually a reason why your body is presenting in a way that's not the healthiest. And so I always say, I talk to people all the time. They're like, I've spent so much time in the gastro doctor and my stomach's been a mess. And not one person's told me to ask my body a question about when I would have a GI issue, what I had eaten before. And I sit there and I'm blown away every time I hear that, because it makes no sense that if your body is telling you something, right? First it whispers, then it yells, then it screams. If your body's screaming at you and we're not asking why, that boils my blood, to be honest, because I've helped people through the grace of God. I've been able to help people that have been in doctor's offices for a long time, actually pinpoint which foods their bodies liked and did not like. And so, and one thing that I should share that is a huge part of my journey that led me to intuitive eating is I have something called histamine intolerance, but which later led to mast cell activation syndrome when I got COVID about 5 years ago. So a lot of healthy foods, and again, this is why we have to be careful to not label what a healthy diet for one person is versus the next. Based on my gene mutations, I struggle to detox histamine. Well, a high histamine diet is what a lot of cardiologists will hand you. And I don't do well on a lot of spinach or avocados or tomatoes or red wine all in one day. My body can handle a little histamine here, a little here. But, here I was early on in my journey thinking I was making a healthy choice because I was following a diet online. Well, I was scrambling my eggs with spinach every morning. I was putting a lemon in my water. I was, eating lots of high histamine foods and I was having skin reactions and my gut was messed up and I was anxious. This is again, while I'm trying to care for myself, I didn't know what happened. So this got me to pause and realize something was wrong and I had to shut out all the noise. I one day was like, I don't care how well I supposedly am eating, something is wrong. And so when I started writing down what I ate and I saw the trend of histamine, this is before I ever knew I had some of my gene mutations. Um, I started piecing together my body did not like a high histamine diet. Whereas my husband, for instance, can eat all the histamine he wants and feel fine. And so I started realizing I don't care how many people are putting apple cider vinegar in their water or lemon juice in their water first thing. My body does not appreciate that. And it gave me this ability to tune out all the noise and trust my body. And so I just wanted to share that piece that the low histamine diet, like acknowledging what histamine was doing in my body, regardless of how healthy the diet was one of my most pivotal moments. And so yeah, I have some clients that can eat, they eat so differently, but it's like what works for them. And I help them tune in enough to ask what that is.
Yeah, yeah. That's, I mean, super important. That's a lot of, what I talk about as well. And I learned
Hmm.
that the hard way, myself too.
Yeah.
Like I started just putting two and two together, thinking, oh, I think this is gluten. Like I don't think I can have gluten anymore. But for years, I went
Yeah.
about thinking you were just supposed to eat and feel terrible after you ate. Like
Oh,
that was
yeah.
normal.
I mean, Lindsie, one thing I'm talking to clients about quite a bit is there's a big sourdough trend right now. And it's fantastic if it works for you, and it's terrible if it doesn't. And it does not work for me. And we actually went to Ireland a few months ago, and there was sourdough like at every restaurant. I don't know why. I didn't know it was a thing in Ireland, but everybody was having sourdough. And I felt horrible coming home. I mean, to be honest, but I knew what I had done. But it's fermented and it does contain gluten. And here's the thing, just because it's trending does not mean it works for you. And so I always say, okay, I'm happy you're in the kitchen. I'm happy you're doing these things, but how do you feel? And it's almost like they don't know they're allowed to pause and ask because they think they're doing something wrong if they're not following what everybody else is doing. It's like, no, for me, sourdough bread does not make me feel good. And so it doesn't mean it's bad, it's a bad food, but many people struggle with gluten. Many people struggle with histamine and have no idea that their skin rashes or anxiety or insomnia or gut dysbiosis is linked to something they're eating that they think they should be eating. That's the thing. I think if I could speak to any person right now, it's the one that is trying to be healthy that doesn't feel good, because those are the people that I think are struggling the most. It's obvious if we're eating ultra processed food and not drinking water and drinking alcohol and living off caffeine, you're not going to feel well. But what about for the person like me in the past? This was me. I was eating as well as I possibly could, as to my knowledge, and I actually got worse before I got better because I didn't know my body was not agreeing with some of these foods that contain certain chemicals. And so I think we have to educate on plant chemicals, and we have to educate on histamine, and we need to look outside of the box. And I just want to say that if anybody's listening and they're not feeling well, and they're listening to they're following a diet trend that their doctor or their best friend told them to do, they've not quite gotten it right for their body, and they need to keep asking questions, because I thought something was wrong with me because I was not able to eat this way. Like, I was like, who can't handle, who breaks out in hives with lemon juice in their water? Everybody's doing lemon juice in their water. It's good for your liver. It wasn't good for me. So I just wanted to speak that loud, because it's not your fault, but there's a reason you're not feeling well.
Yeah, super important. Side note, I have a gluten-free sourdough starter that I'm in love with.
Oh, really? See, I haven't done a gluten-free one yet. I really, would love to. I love to be in the kitchen. That's good
Yeah,
to know.
love to. Bread's amazing. I mean, at least
Yeah.
for me, I feel
Oh,
like,
I
but
love bread. I eat
yeah,
bread like all the time, but they're like gluten-free. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCOS Unfiltered. I hope this conversation with Laura encourages you to take a step back from all the noise in the health world and start reconnecting with the one voice that matters most, your own body. One of my favorite takeaways from this episode is the reminder that healing doesn't come from chasing every new trend or forcing yourself into rigid rules. It often begins with slowing down, paying attention, and asking simple but powerful questions like, how do I actually feel? What is my body trying to tell me? Your health journey doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to follow a straight line, and it certainly doesn't have to look like anyone else's. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend, take a screenshot and tag us on social media, or leave a review so more women can find these conversations and begin reconnecting with their own bodies as well. You can connect with Laura through her website, livehealthywithlaura.com, listen to her podcast, Live Healthy with Laura, and check out her books, including her newest release, Just Jump, an overthinker's guide to getting unstuck. I'll make sure all of those links are included in the show notes for you. And as always, remember, your body is not broken, your symptoms are not random, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your health is learn to trust yourself again. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you on the next episode of PCOS Unfiltered. Nourish, heal, thrive.